hello and welcome to all of you. Welcome to a conversation about creating tomorrow. My name is Catherine Clark. I am a proud member of the Board of Governors of the Ottawa Hospital, and I am thrilled to be here with all of you today. I'd like to begin our conversation by acknowledging that the land on which we gather in the National Capital Region is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And the reason that we're all gathered here today is because, as you know, the Ottawa Hospital Foundation has launched the $500 million campaign to create tomorrow. It is a landmark campaign. It is designed to support the truly exciting new campus development on Carling Avenue, and it will also support leading edge research at the hospital. It's really just an exciting opportunity for us today to learn more about the campaign and about the exciting plans that are going to transform healthcare in this region. And so I am joined by the people who are helping to make it all happen. I have Cameron Love here. Of course, Cameron is the president and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital. We have Janet McKeage, who is the chair of the foundation's board, and we have Tim Kluke, who is the president and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital Foundation. Hello, and welcome to all of you. Well, and congratulations. Super exciting time. Really neat to be a part of it. Let's start, Tim, with you. Let's start with community response so far, because you launched the campaign last spring. Lots of fanfare, lots of excitement within the community. What kind of reaction are you getting right now?
Sure. It was an incredible launch, really special day. We announced a $216 million raise, which was raised during the pandemic. Believe it or not, through Zoom calls and Teams calls. We were very fortunate to talk to many donors in our community. And I would say to a family that we talked to, they recognize the legacy opportunity of both this campaign, but also of the project that they're funding. And we have been, I think, humbled by the support. We've received some of the largest philanthropic gifts ever contributed in Ottawa. And I think that speaks to the importance of the project and the opportunity to frame the future of the city.
Well, and you were talking to him about the fact that this started during a pandemic. The other thing that started during a pandemic is your chairship. So Janet, you took over not long after the campaign was launched. It is a huge campaign. You're also, as I understand it, campaign executive. So these are really big roles. What does the campaign mean to you? Why take on this kind of major challenge right now?
I think that the hospital is a central part of our community. Without our health and without good health care, nothing else can really survive or strive for excellence in a community. So I was raised in a family where you give back. Whatever it is you can do. I'll tell you about two very special women in my life. The first is my mom, who's 85, and she has always taught me it's not necessarily about the money, it's about giving back to people who have less than you have. So when I was asked to step into this chair, it was a little daunting, I'll be honest, but I feel very honored and very thrilled to be part of it. The other person that I would acknowledge is my very good friend Cindy, who led me to the cause really of getting involved with the hospital. And this is a person who's facing cancer and a palliative care place with cancer. She continues to give back. This past weekend, she was out there giving back to the community and trying to raise money and awareness, despite having chemo 2 days before. So when I see people around me doing this, I just feel it's my duty to be here and be a part of such a great institution with Cameron and with Tim leading the foundation. We have such an exceptional opportunity to really change the direction of the future for Ottawa. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of it.
Well, and I love your comments, Janet, because I think what they help to reinforce is that while we're trying to raise a massive amount of money, and while large donors are really important, that average community members are as much a part of this journey. They're integral to the success of this campaign too. So I really love that example as well. Gosh, there's lots of excitement, certainly at the Ottawa Hospital, let alone the foundation board level, about this this new development. Cam, can you give us an update on some of the milestones that have been reached so far, just so that people know what's actually going on at this point?
We're at such an exciting point in time. And you know, when you look through this pandemic for the last 2 or 3 years, we've just been really sort of heads down doing all the planning work. But coming into this year, into 2022, we've really gone from a planning phase into an implementation phase. So if you happen to walk down by the site today, you'd see on the top part all the excavation preparing the site for the future build. But there's really 2 or 3 major foundational components that are going to support the new build that are actually underway now. So one of them is the parking garage. And so the parking garage started, we RFP'd it a number of months ago. The actual project has been awarded and we're under construction now. And it'll take the better part of 15 to 18 months to build that. While we're building the parking garage, we're also into the planning phases and we'll probably start sort of summer, fall next year of building a central utility plant. And so when you've got the site prepared, you've got the parking garage, and you've got the central utility plant, those are sort of 3 major foundations to build the new building. And that process right now is underway. We'll be out to RFP sort of over the course of the next month, probably 90 to 120 days through the RFP process. And then once we've done this first phase of the RFP, we have sort of a solid 1.5 years of doing all the detailed design of the main building, with an intent that in 2024, give or take a month or 2, we'll start the development of the new build, the actual hospital build. But we'll have a parking garage, we'll have a central utility plant, which will support the development of the new building. And then we're probably about a 4-year construction process and an opening sometime in 2028.
Okay, I have a couple of follow-up questions there. There are probably some people in the audience who are thinking, new hospital, healthcare, very exciting. Why are you starting with the parking garage?
Yeah, good question. So the parking garage, like any major build, whether you're building condominiums, whether you're building any major building, you need a parking structure. The catch with this one is we will probably have somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 people that are working on that site. The main build as it's built. You have to have places for these people to park. And so all your construction workers, all your consultants, the entire team that is there daily to support the new build, the parking garage allows us to park all those people, because if not, you got nowhere else to park them because the site will be under full construction. So it is really sort of a preparatory phase. Same thing was the concept with the central utility plant, where you're building a plant that can provide you with heat, light, and power. As we get into the main build and you start to shell in the building, you're going to need heat, light, and power to fit it up inside. So instead of bringing all these temporary systems in place, you build a central utility plant, and with the garage and the central utility plant, your entire crew that's going to build your main building will build that for 4 years. And it really, you kind of have to look at it as sort of a small city that is going to build your new building. Like, you're talking thousands of people every day on the site.
So what's the next milestone? Beyond parking garage, central utility, what else should we all be paying attention for?
So the next major milestone is really the announcement of the consortia that will build the main building. So we're going to be out to RFP, as I said, over the next month. It'll take a few months here to determine who that's going to be. It's done with Infrastructure Ontario. So once Infrastructure Ontario completes that RFP process and we award to a consortia, that consortia is going to be the group that's with this community for the next 4 years, which is really the next major milestone in terms of the process to get the development underway.
So Cam, how is the new campus development actually going to help transform healthcare in this region?
Yeah, so it's probably the most exciting part to this. So don't get me wrong, we're going to build an incredible building. But what we're really building is a starting point to how we rebuild healthcare in this community. And there's 2 or 3 key dimensions to this. And I think first and foremost is the programs we run regionally. So when you take 2 programs, for example, like the regional trauma program and the regional neuroscience program, we have incredible teams in terms of what they provide for care for this community. But when you take a look at the infrastructure of trauma center of what we have today at a 100-year-old building versus a trauma center of the future, it is a daylight and dark discussion. And at the most basics of it, of having a helipad on the top of your roof that drops you right into the trauma unit versus one across the street where you have to bring people across the street, you build an entire new set of infrastructure that allows you to not only expand capacity, put in new tools and infrastructure, but creates a completely different infrastructure that allows us to manage getting care to people as quickly as possible. And that's for trauma. For something like neurosciences, we run one of the largest neuroscience programs today in Canada. It is one of the greatest demands in terms of the population that requires care. When you take things like stroke and ALS and MS and Parkinson's, in most communities, it's a very significant growth in demand. In ours, it is really significant. And so part of this is building that capacity, but what it's also doing is it's building infrastructure around a research center, a clinical research component to the building, what we build for new ORs, how we incorporate innovation into it. And so what you get is you get an entire integration of all these tools and equipment around a school of experts that allows you to propel not only how we care for people, but how we've advanced the care over the next 25 years for neurosciences. Same thing applies for surgery, mental health, care of the elderly, our neonatal intensive care unit team. The infrastructure just allows you to create far better ways of bringing people together to provide care, but also incorporating research into it to advance care. So that's probably the most important dimension. The other component to this that is a bit unique and new is what we're doing with innovation. And so when you look at historically the Ottawa Hospital, like many other academic centers, we will have done and will always do strong clinical care, what we do for research and what we do for education. The dimension that's shifted for us is a whole dimension around how we innovate. And innovate is a very rapid cycle. And so if I give you an example, a really good example of innovation that probably the entire planet understands is the COVID test. Pre-COVID, we didn't have a testing device. You can't wait 9 years to go through research cycles to identify a COVID test. What you need is private-public partnerships that allow you to create either digital platforms or a technical device that allows you to advance the care. The COVID test is a perfect example of that. Part of building this new infrastructure, and we're going to build an innovation tower that goes with this, is this dimension of how we partner with the private sector that gives us a whole strategy on how we accelerate discovery between innovation and research. That's new for us, and it's new for this region, but it's critical to the success of the organization for the next 25, 50, 100 years. So that's the second dimension. And then I think the third one, which is equally as important, is we've really tried to move towards regionalizing healthcare. And the Ottawa Hospital, we provide about 65 to 70% of all adult care and 100% of all tertiary care. So those real complex services that patients can only go to one location, like neurosciences and like trauma. The catch with integration is we provide care for everybody from Deep River to Cornwall to Hawkesbury and all of Western Quebec. So a lot of what we're doing is starting to build satellite operations in the community, whether it's for dialysis patients or whether it's for surgical patients or patients that are elderly, patients that need long-term care. But you still need a hub center that creates the infrastructure, the capability to expand both from a clinical and an academic perspective, and the digital platforms and infrastructure to allow you to integrate care across this community. While we have some of that to some extent in this building, the infrastructure makes a significant difference to allow you to integrate care. And so part of building this out is how do we continue to regionalize services? So it doesn't matter whether you're living in the far corners of Deep River or Cornwall, the care you get there is identical to what you get if you're living in downtown Ottawa or in the Glebe. And so what it starts to create is a different standard platform and allows us to use the building as a catalyst to transform healthcare.
I want to pick up with Tim on what you're talking about in terms of research, because it's an equally critical component of this whole campaign, isn't it? You're fundraising for the new campus development, but also for the research component. Can you talk to us about why that's so important?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Cameron spoke well about the importance of integrating research into clinical care, and that's a big part of the new campus. It's a big part of the Ottawa Hospital, and I think when people think of medical research, they don't often think about what's happening in their own backyard here at the Ottawa Hospital. And really, there is no Ottawa Hospital without research. And we're recognized as one of the leading research hospitals in Canada, believe it or not. People often say to us, really here in Ottawa. And if you think of research, it's the hope and promise, right? It's the hope for our patients who perhaps some of those traditional methods, traditional care options didn't work out for them. So living in a community that has a vibrant research institution allows you to take advantage of some of those new novel therapies, maybe a new clinical trial that will kind of give you hope. But if you think of research at the Ottawa Hospital and building a new hospital, Now we've got incredible state-of-the-art technology at a great research hospital, which allows us to attract some of the greatest clinicians, physicians and nurses and researchers can go anywhere in the world. So this is just one more reason for them to choose Ottawa to come and practice. So it's great facilities, leading edge care, and great research.
Janet, I'm really curious about how you got involved, because your involvement with the Ottawa Hospital Foundation seems to have started in a really grassroots way, and then it grew from there. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that personal element and what brought you into the fold?
Sure. So, Catherine, I mentioned before, I have a very good friend, Cindy, who got me involved through Run for a Reason, so running and raising money for the hospital. And when she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 10 years ago, I took on a role as a breakfast champion. So bringing people to the Ottawa Hospital breakfast to hear about what we're doing here. And I think I'm not unlike many people that Tim talks about. I saw the hospital as a place that you go to have your children, or when you have an accident.
Go to the Emerge.
Yeah. And when I got involved with the breakfast, it was a real aha moment for me, because I started to, I like to say, peel back the onion and see the inside of what you talk about. For me, Dr. Bell's research, because of Cindy's cancer journey, was really eye-opening, but that's just one thing. Everybody has, if you haven't experienced the hospital, or you haven't experienced trauma or a devastating disease, sadly, your family's gonna be touched by it. And we want the best care here. That's why we're all here. So for me, that led me then to co-chairing the breakfast. They have a way, this team. They're such wonderful people. I mean, this organization is incredible. We're so fortunate to have it. From there, that led to getting involved with the board, and my passion just increased. I mean, you have to appreciate that, again, this person, Cindy's journey, has been up and down over the past 10 years. So my passion for the hospital has equally grown, because I want to help her and I want to help others like her. So when they asked me to step in as chair, although it was daunting, as you say, Catherine, I just felt like I have this family at the hospital that's going to be there to support me and my family and my friends. And this is my opportunity as a business leader to step back and say, how can I help? So it's been a natural progression for me. And as I said, I'm very honored and humbled.
When you're having conversations with community leaders and community members, what do you tell them? What do you want them to know about the importance of this project, not just for this city, but for this region?
So I talked about, personally, everybody's going to benefit from having a leading edge hospital and research here. But as business leaders, it just makes sense. If you want to have the best employees, if we want to continue to grow in the technology space or in any space, having the best hospital and the best care in our city, it just makes sense. This is so important for us. So when you emphasize that and you talk about the economic implications of the build, but then also long-term and getting the best employees for organizations, people just buy in, they get it. This is essential. This thread runs through our whole community, regardless of your economic background, regardless of your business, regardless of your family. We need the hospital.
Cam, I want to ask you a question about the very patient-centric approach that this new hospital is going to bring to our community. Because I think if there's one thing that the pandemic really showed us, is that not having your family with you in a time of health crisis can just have devastating impacts on people. And this new hospital is designed to ensure that people have a caregiver or a family member who's able to be part of the journey with them, frankly, in a room with them. I mean, the rooms are designed for patient-centric care. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that? Because the details of how extraordinary this are going to be Those are important details. But for the average person who's thinking about going into a hospital, it's a little scary. Can you explain to us how this hospital will be different?
Yeah, so it's probably, I would suggest to you, Catherine, it's probably the most important dimension to any hospital that's being built worldwide. And when you think about patients and families that come to us, there's an expectation, and there should be an expectation, that we're going to provide the best possible care anywhere on the planet. And so to Tim's point, one of the real benefits to having the opportunity as a community to build a brand new center is it attracts people all across the globe to come and work here. And when you attract them, what you start to get is you start to get a very strong fabric of clinicians and teams that provide great care, and they also are able to advance care. So we make sure that no matter who it is in this community, they're going to get as good or better care than whether they're going to Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Karolinska in Sweden. Like it rivals all those organizations. But that's only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the experience that the patients and the families have when they're here. And so when you take things like private rooms, I'll tell you, if we had private rooms in this hospital through the pandemic, it would have been a completely different situation. Our teams do a wonderful job of managing. But when you're trying to manage in a pandemic and you've got 2 and 3 bed rooms at a time when you need to isolate everyone, there's a dimension here around how we manage. Hopefully we never have one, but I'm not sure we'll ride out 100 years before another pandemic. But how do we manage and keep people safe through the pandemic? And so private rooms are absolutely core to this new building. And so when you have a private room, obviously it's your room. You have a bed, obviously, for the patient, but you also have a sleeping arrangement for a family member. And so for most patients, fortunately, they have families that are part of their caregiving or their essential caregivers. And in today's environment, we can't really accommodate the family. So they may be able to sit at the chair at the bedside with another patient in the room, but what it creates is it creates far more of almost like a home setting where the patient's cared for. And there is tons of research when you look at things like natural light, having caregivers involved, and people's recovery, let alone their experience. And so the private room is probably the core to that. But then there's other dimensions to it as we build digital platforms on how you keep in close contact with patients and families through whether it's iPhones or reaching your physician or getting electronic information on the status of your loved one. That's a whole different dimension. And so as we build out these digital platforms through the new building, what you get is this interconnectivity between patients, families, and their caregivers that just continues to improve. And then there's another dimension which is equally important, which we are always very focused on. What can we do from a patient experience perspective so the patient has the best experience? But a lot of time, a patient's experience is as or more important, but equally to what their family experience is. And so if you go into many hospitals, and ours for sure, we don't have a lot of family spaces that give people sort of quiet time away or amenities that they need to deal with stressful situations or have our support staff interact with them in confidential ways. What the building allows is it builds these patients and family spaces. And so not only in room, but out of room, and then amenities in the building where, whether it's food or how you need to get access to other things or you need internet connections, all those types of spaces, which is kind of like you'd get in a hotel feel. You want to incorporate that into a family because many times families are here. It's not for one day. It could be 7 days, 30 days, 40 days, 100 days because of the complexity of some of the patients we're dealing with. You want the family to feel very supportive and very at home and get all the comforts they have at home in the hospital. So when it comes to food and parking and access to digital information, a place to sleep, all those things are built into new infrastructure, wrapped around what's most important for the patient, but equally as important for the family. And so all those things get built into the building.
Yeah, it's going to be a really remarkable structure. Final word to you, Tim. You don't have a $500 million campaign without having a lot of conversations with people. Can you give all of us a sense of how we can start or continue to contribute to this campaign?
For sure. Well, what I would say is there's a place for everyone in our community to participate in this campaign. Off the top, I mentioned that we've been blessed and humbled by many large gifts. but it will take a community and a community support for us to raise $500 million. And as I think of our direct mail donors, our monthly donors, companies that want to engage their workplaces, or individuals who are even meeting with their financial planners and estate planners, think of the Ottawa Hospital, and in particular, think of this campaign. You know, we're very fortunate that we're surrounded by great community leaders, Janet and others who are volunteering their time, and Roger Greenberg, the chair of our campaign, who's been a phenomenal leader for us. So this is a great opportunity to make a mark in our city and pay it forward for generations to come. And contact us, creatingtomorrow.ca, call the foundation, call the hospital. We'd be happy to have a conversation, or even how to engage your workplace if you're an employer as well.
Thank you. Thanks to all three of you for not just this conversation, but also for your leadership on this project. It is truly an important project, and you can feel the momentum building and the excitement too. And that's only going to continue over the next few years. So, and a sincere thank you to everyone joining us today as well. This project won't be possible without all of your support. And working together, we really will be able to create a truly transformative healthcare institution. So, you know, Tim was just mentioning where you can go for more information, and that is creatingtomorrow.ca. We really encourage you to reach out. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you.